This is Rob Tobert for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined by Southern Area Super Middleweight Champion Germaine Brown. We're here in lockdown, day number 155,000. Who knows? How are you, Germaine?
How you doing, man? How you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm all good.
No, just briefly spoke a little bit off camera about, I say off camera, on camera, but before we started the recording. See, I'm still used to kind of the way things were about lockdown, and you said yourself that you're doing okay. What have you been up to?
I'm just chilling. I've just been on the T4, watching movies, documentaries. Just taking it easy. I've still been training. Obviously you can't do that sparring, go to the gyms and stuff, but still been going for runs, bike rides, skipping. So I'm just still staying active, so it hasn't been too bad for me.
What documentaries have you been watching?
I watched that Chicago Bulls one. I watched that on Netflix. Yeah, I just finished watching that yesterday.
Thoughts?
No, it's just the way show the way that MJ thinks and is always willing to want to win and stuff like that. It's just his mentality of the games is crazy.
When you watch something like that, because obviously that's a team sport, but it's a team sport about, a great individual. Not about a great individual, but the story's kind of centered around that. You're a boxer. There's no team. Well, there is a team, but when you get into the ring, ultimately it's you. How do you take, or what do you take from somebody's mentality like that in a team sport and transfer it into boxing?
Yeah, well, boxing obviously it's just going to be me in the ring, but you still have a team with you because Adam and Nick, as my coaches, they're still part of my team because when you're into the gym together and we're practicing certain things in the gym, and then you got to make sure that you do it in the ring. So when you're coming back at the end of the round and you're speaking to them about strategies and things that we've been doing in the gym, they're still team members because they play a big part of what you do in the ring. So it's not just me doing everything. There's loads of people behind it, so it's still a team, I say. But just that I've just got to go in the ring and produce it all while they just behind the ropes, innit, watching and hoping that I do that.
You mentioned Adam, obviously your coach Adam Martin. Hope he doesn't mind me saying this, and I hope you don't mind me saying this. When we spoke about getting an interview sorted with you, he said that for some reason, even though super middleweight, not just now, but historically has always been one of the strongest, if not the strongest divisions in Britain, that you see Umar Sadiq's name mentioned, you see a lot of the other super middleweight names mentioned, but you don't get your name mentioned that much. You just won the Southern Area title in November.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think your name hasn't been mentioned as of yet?
I'm not sure. I thought once I won the Southern Area, I thought my name would be mentioned, but didn't really get much back from winning it. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know. That's why I'm hoping to get one of these big fights. So hopefully it can happen soon. Hopefully my name will start getting mentioned and can get a big a domestic fight.
You mentioned obviously domestic fights. A lot of the talk at the minute is about, I know Eddie Hearn's one example of the fight camp, and people are looking to put on shows behind closed doors, and according to the British Boxing Board of Control guidelines, domestic fights only, no title fights, which means you wouldn't be able to necessarily make a defence of your Southern Area. But is that what you're pushing for? Is that what you're looking towards, kind of these behind-the-scenes domestics?
That's why I'm trying to stay active. I'm not trying to put on weight. I'm trying to still go for runs. Because as soon as they say I can get a fight or there's a show I can be on, I'm trying to get onto it as soon as ASAP. So I'm not trying to wait for, I don't know, because I haven't boxed since November. It was my last fight. So I'm itching to fight, man. I want to box. So as soon as I can, I'll be on it.
As I mentioned, you're super middleweight, the Southern Area champion. Going back, to the 90s, super middleweight's always been kind of the marquee division in this country, or on these shores, probably till recently with the heavyweights. Were you always a boxing fan? Were you ever inspired? Did you ever watch any fighters when you were growing up?
Yeah, but I came to boxing quite not late, but I started boxing when I was 15. So I did watch a few boxing matches, obviously like Mike Tyson, Tommy Hearns and things like that. like through like YouTube videos, stuff like that. But then I didn't start boxing till I was 15. But I always used to watch loads of boxing fights.
What compelled you to start boxing at 15?
I started, like, they brought it into my school as an after school thing to do. And I was also, my brother boxed at the Fitzroy Lodge. And then he brought me down to the lodge. And then I started training down there. Then I had my first amateur fight there. And I had all of my amateur fights there as well. So,
what's your earliest memory of Fitzroy Lodge? Were you a natural? Did you get beat up on your first day? Usually fighters get beat up on the first day.
yeah, now, on my first day there, granted, he just let me go in the back. Like, he let me do some mirror. First, I started off doing a bit of mirror work, like, don't know how many rounds. Then after, just let me go in the bag. And I was just punching the bag like non-stop for like 10 rounds straight. And then like didn't really say much. And then just let me get changed. I went home, jumped to the train, went home. I went straight to bed. I didn't say nothing to no one. Went to bed and I was tired. And then it's just like, yeah, come back on Wednesday. And I just kept going. It was every Monday and Wednesday. And I was just there every week after school.
A lot of fighters always talk about, I mean, particularly for somebody like yourself who comes to the sport, not as late as some people, but you didn't start when you were 6 or 7 like some fighters do. Talk about kind of getting bit by the bug, and once they go through and they work out and then that's it. Was that the same for you, or was it something that you kind of gradually grew into?
No, I definitely, from when I was going after school, I kept going there to repeat. I was addicted that straight away. I wanted to go. Then as soon as I went to the lodge, I was there every week. It was like, once I get into a routine, it was like, once it was in the routine, it was like, yeah, I have to go. No matter what, I didn't need to be forced to go to the gym. It was like, it was just natural to me. It's that routine.
How far along were you in your career when you hooked up with Adam Martin?
I've known Adam from the amateurs because he used to do the matchmaking for the lodge. So I knew him in the amateurs anyway. And then so when I turned pro, I went to Adam. Like, well, I was going down to Isha gym as well, training, doing a bit of training with him, a bit of sparring here and there. And then, so when I turned over, it was like natural for me to go with Adam because I already knew.
Did that help you? Because a lot of fighters talk about going from the amateurs and going to the pros and the fact that it's completely different. Did it help you having somebody who was familiar with your style and yourself as an amateur when you were crossing over and turning pro?
Yeah, definitely, because we had a bit of a relationship already as well. So it was good that we kind of understood each other already and we knew each other. We weren't too, like, we were comfortable around each other. So it worked well.
Somebody who I speak to fairly often, I spoke to him yesterday, somebody else who's part of your team in Luther Clay,
Yeah.
welterweight contender, currently in the middle of a social media back and forth with Dylan White and Eddie Hearn and seemingly everybody else. What can you tell people who are not potentially as familiar with Luther as you are? What kind of fighter is he? What kind of person is he? And how is it working with him in the gym?
Well, obviously he's been to the gym quite recent, but he's just been, from what I've seen, like, he's just a hard worker, putting in the work in the gym, and he's going to be a tough fight. I don't know what's going on too much about the situation, what fight is going to happen or what's going on, but when he does fight, he's gonna show people like what he's about, and he's a tough fighter.
So, what sort of fight are you looking for? I mean, you mentioned like the fact that it's got to be domestic obviously narrows it down. There'll be no more Eastern Europeans getting flown in on 4 or 5 days' notice, which I think personally is a good thing. What kind of level of opponent are you expecting? I'm not asking for you to call somebody out and this, that, and the other. But what type of level of opponent would you be looking for a behind closed door show?
Well, anyone that's, they say that's the same level as me. I've had 8 fights. Someone that's or someone that's undefeated, or someone that's had maybe like a loss on their record, like 2 losses, 10 fights. I don't know. There's someone that's roughly above the level that I've been boxing at. My last fight for the Southern area was against what's his name? Oh my gosh.
Sam Smith?
Sam Smith.
That was it, yeah.
From someone that's above the level of Sam Smith, because each fight I want to move up a level, so someone that's a level above him.
How's it been? I mean, you mentioned kind of you're one of the, not one of the only fighters, but one of few fighters who I've spoken to who have been quite. You seem very calm. You seem, some fighters who I've spoken to in lockdown, they're either chomping at the bit and they're kind of a little bit too much, and others are just kind of a little bit flat. To be honest, you seem in the middle, which I think is a good thing. How have you kept yourself sane during all of this? Because you're on the back of, I mean, a career best win. You've picked up your first title. How have you kept sane mentally doing something like this?
The fact that this, because it's not only just boxing that's off. It's like the fact that it's the whole country, it's the whole world that's going through this situation. So I just feel like there's nothing much I can do. There's nothing you can really do. You just have to just wait and see. And there's I've just been like, the lifestyle ain't really changed much for me, because the lifestyle's kind of been the same. It's just been training and being at home. So the fact that some people are saying like pubs are closed, clubs are closed, those are places that I don't go to. So it's not been a big thing for me.
You managed to keep your weight down? I've spoken to some fighters who haven't.
Yeah, no, the weight's fine. It's just that where I'm not as active, maybe it's like, because I'm just at home, like watching TVs or being on my P4, whereas normally I probably wouldn't have been out, probably going to meet someone or walking around somewhere. But the weight's all good.
Are you somebody who watches a lot of boxing? So I speak to a lot of fighters who some do, some don't, some are obsessed, some really, really don't like watching the sport. Where do you fall in that?
I'm like, it depends. Like sometimes I go for a period where like I'll watch a lot of boxing. Like if I like a fighter a lot, I probably watch like a lot of their fights. But when you got access to YouTube, you just watch everyone's fights. So if I go on YouTube and I watch someone's fights and I like the fighter, I'll go through, watch the boxing, like watch all their fights. But I'm a bit, it depends really. It all depends. Go through little periods.
What types of fighters? What was the last fighter that you ended up watching a lot of on YouTube?
During lockdown, I've been watching a lot of Terence Crawford. That's what I've been watching. Before that, I was watching Errol Spence. But I never watched any of Terence Crawford's fights. So I was always saying, right, Errol Spence will beat him. But now that I'm watching Terence Crawford's fights, it's a bit like, oh, it's a fight I want to see. It's a fight I definitely want to see now. It's made it even more like a bigger fight for me.
See, I've been watching a lot of Shane Mosley in at the start of lockdown. Yeah, at the start of lockdown, I was watching a lot of Shane Mosley, lightweight version of Shane Mosley. Oops, sorry, just got an email. He was a tremendous fighter, so would recommend watching some Shane Mosley, some early Shane Mosley, as I've been doing.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Okay, well, I think that's probably about it. I mean, it's been the thing with stuff like this is that there's not an awful lot going on at the minute, as you're very well aware. But it's been really nice to make this first initial introduction, to have you on the channel. Now we're officially in touch. It'd be good to keep up the contact and do this again soon. Hopefully, when we get some boxing back sooner rather than later. But yeah, Germaine Brown, Southern Area Super Middleweight Champion. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the interview.
No problem at all. And before I let you go, tell people where to follow you on social media.
You can follow me on Instagram at gbrown_boxer, and on Twitter it's gmanboxing23.
There we go. Okay, Germaine Brown, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social, and look forward to catching up with you soon.